So I live in this household, Companions of the Cross, Father Alex, Sebastian, 2 other priests are with us. And on Mondays are our day off. And so, we try to relax, get some exercise, do a bit of reading. And by Monday evening, we come together to celebrate Mass. And then we have this sacred tradition that we refer to as nachos and Netflix. And so we always enjoy making nachos together, whatever's left over in the fridge, so sometimes it gets pretty creative. And while we're doing this, Father Alex is actually the DJ. So he's, putting on playlists, everything from classical to country to crooners. Every once in a while, he'll play a 90s playlist, which for me takes me back to high school. That's my jam. And Sebastian, he says, "Oh, we're playing the classics." Which makes me feel extra old. Now, occasionally, Father Alex will play some rap. Eminem or Snoop Dogg or whatever. And music is such a mystery, right? It affects us in different ways. For Father Alex, what it does to him, I don't know if it's the poetic lyrics or the thick beats or whatever, but he can just zone in. Everything else fades away, and he can cut those avocados and make the guacamole. Not a care in the world. Meanwhile, one of our other brothers, it just sends him to a different place. It has this visceral response where he's disturbed deep in his spirit. He becomes angry, which makes Father Alex crank up the volume even louder. Right? He's a priest, so he's good at helping other people grow in holiness. Have you ever noticed how music can be so powerful and also so polarizing, so divisive? Some people are like, "I hate country." Other people say, "I listen to both types of music, country and Western." Or, Father Alex being the exception, but most self-respecting people don't really appreciate rap. I've witnessed these debates, these arguments. Some people will say, "I can't believe you listen to so-and-so." And they're like, "Well, I think your music is dumb. I think you're dumb." At least maybe you don't debate the way we do immaturely in our companion's household. But this polarization, this division in music, it exists even in the Catholic Church. And it's painful to see this division. It's like watching a U.S. primary, really. It's horrible, and you may not know this, but going on right now is this debate in the church over music. What's the best kind of music, specifically within the liturgy? And so it can be quite confusing. I've heard influencers on YouTube speak with utter disdain when they hear about guitars being used during Mass. And others, meanwhile, are saying there's no way that you'll ever reach this generation with the organ. Nobody cares about the organ anymore. And these debates, these divisions ensue. And so as I try to make sense of it, I go back to some of the church documents. So there was this council called the Vatican II Council, this gathering of bishops from all over the world in the 1960s, and they produced several documents explaining some of the truths, the teachings of the church, and one of them is called Sacrosanctum Concilium. It's all about the liturgy. And here's a few choice quotes. Gregorian chant is specially suited to the Roman liturgy. It should be given pride of place. Or another, in the Latin Church, the pipe organ is to be held in high esteem, though there's other instruments can be admitted. So right away, there's so much that's being said very plainly, very clearly, to say we have to stay rooted in the tradition, in the rich history of the Catholic Church. We can't just abandon that. And yet, in the middle of these two quotes, in paragraph 119, it says this: "In certain parts of the world, especially mission lands, there are peoples who have their own musical traditions, adapting worship to their native genius." Now, this was written in 1963, so I don't know what they thought of as mission lands. Maybe they were thinking of Africa or Asia, the Far East or something, but where are the mission lands today. Halifax, Nova Scotia. Seriously. Fewer than 10% of people, of baptized Catholics, I should say, come to Mass on Sunday. And that was before the pandemic. So it's even fewer now. This is mission territory. In fact, we're so blessed. We have people who have come to us from Africa, from the Far East, who have a vibrant faith that are leavened in our community. The point is, there's this debate going back and forth, even in the church, saying, your music is bad, my music is good, and the one thing I know for sure is that division is not of God. Divide and conquer, that's on page 1 of the enemy's playbook. And I believe God is offering an alternate vision for music and worship. And we can see it right in our psalm, in Psalm 98. Now the Psalms, they're songs, literally, many of them written by King David, who was a musician, a composer. He laid down some rhymes, he played the harp, right? And this particular psalm is all about praise. We don't have the first few verses, but they're all about what God has done, how God has won the victory. He's been steadfast and faithful. He's set things right. And then we pick it up in verse 5, where, listen to some of these lines. Sing praise to the Lord with the lyre. The lyre is a kind of harp. With the lyre and the sound of melody, with trumpets and the sound of the horn, make a joyful noise before the King, the Lord. So right away, we see this diversity of instruments that are being used in praise. Now, in Hebrew, there are at least 7 different words for praise. The Inuit people have 50 different words for snow. The Hebrews, they had 7 different words for praise. And among them, to praise with song, to praise God with a loud shout, to offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving, to raise hands to God in praise. But the word that is used here in this passage is the word zamar, which means to touch the strings. In other words, to use an instrument to help us praise God. And there's this variety, this diversity of instruments that are expressed. Okay, if you continue, it says this: let the sea roar, let the floods clap their hands, let the hills sing together for joy at the presence of the Lord. And we have here this description of nature that is already caught up in the worship of God. Again, in this diversity of ways, the seas, the floods, the hills, all of them coming together. I don't know if you've ever been hiking along the ocean, the coastline. We're so blessed here in Nova Scotia to live amidst such beauty. And you can hear this music of the waves crashing along the shore. Nothing can prevent that. This diversity of nature coming together to worship God. I can't help but think of the sound of music. You remember that, right? The hills are alive with the sound of music. I might audition for the band later, Our world is so divided when it comes to music. Even our church is rife with debate over music and worship, and yet Psalm 98 is presenting this image for us to say, you know what? There are diverse ways to worship the one true God, whether it's with the lyre, with the trumpet, with the horn, the seas roaring, the floods clapping their hands, the hills singing for joy. There's this rich diversity. And together, we can come and worship the one true God. See, God has won the victory. And as a New Testament people, we know Jesus has died on the cross. He's risen to new life. He saved us. And the only sane response is to praise his name. At Saint Benedict, we know that worship is essential. We put it right on our game plan to worship God, to pray, and I include singing as part of that prayer, even to give. This is part of our sacrificial offering that makes up Sunday. We know how important this is, and yet we don't want to be caught up fostering this division, this counter-witness. At Saint Benedict, we want to be a church with arms wide open, saying anybody can come. You're welcome, everybody. You belong. Come and worship in whatever style. Worship the one true God. And I would suggest that we have this spectrum of appropriate ways to worship God. Everything from this culture of contemporary worship, what we have at this Mass, this praise and worship band that leads us, to the culture of contemplative worship, which we have Sunday afternoons at 4 p.m. with the organ and chant and silence. And that's beautiful in a totally different way. And then our Saturday afternoon Mass is kind of like a blending of the two. And the point is not to say, one is better than the other, but come and worship God. Whatever moves you to worship Him, come and experience that. And I just want to be vulnerable with you for a moment, because I didn't always believe that there should be this diversity. I grew up at a church that used this praise and worship contemporary style, and that was familiar for me. In fact, you know that my mom's a professional musician, and she's led choirs for decades, and I actually played with her as a teenager. I was in the choir, the band, whatever. I played guitar, I played drums, I played alto saxophone at Mass. I'm getting very vulnerable with you right now. It was a long time ago. But the point is that this diversity of instruments, these diversity of ways to praise in this one contemporary style. And it wasn't until I came here to Saint Benedict, hanging out with people like Father James Mallon and even Father Alex, who've opened me up, who've pushed me to appreciate the great tradition of our church. And in fact, I myself, now this afternoon at the 4 p.m. Mass, I'm going to chant parts of the Eucharistic prayer. And we do this every single week, and it moves me in a profound way. It brings me into the mystery in a different way. I love it. So what I'm telling you, I believe that our church needs this diversity. Now, practically speaking, we've invested a lot over the years in our contemporary praise and worship, in the people, in the instruments, in our new sound system and everything. But we realize that now is the time to invest in this more contemplative style. And specifically, I'm talking about investing in a new digital organ. Our current organ is over 30 or 40 years old. It was originally designed for home use. So when they built the church, they kind of jerry-rigged it to make it work here. But it's kind of been on its last legs for the better part of a decade. It's been falling apart and repaired. Last I heard, there were 14 keys that don't work. It's not suitable. So about 4 years ago, we began the conversation, started researching pipe organs, used organs. We looked at the Cadillac of concert organs, and we found something that was going to cost close to $200,000. I mean, you can't just go to Costco to buy these things, right? They make them one at a time. But because of COVID, everything was paused. But recently, we've resumed the conversation, and the leadership team, the pastoral council, the finance council is completely unanimous in support of this. We got approval from the Archdiocese to move forward with a new quality digital organ. For the cost is going to be $95,000, including taxes and installation. And we're trying our best to be good stewards of your generosity. Why is this so important? Yes, practically, we just can't go on with what we have. But in addition to that, we're so blessed. We have Peter Tanier, who is this gifted, world-renowned composer and musician who plays at our Sunday afternoon Mass. He's been on CBC, and we're in addition to him, there's other many very gifted organists. So we have this Mass, this contemplative Mass. We use the organ at funerals, at some weddings, Christmas and Holy Week, these Gregorian prayer nights. And in addition to this, you may not know this, but Saint Benedict is offering a model to the world. There's all kinds of people who look to us for an example of parish renewal. And it's just a fact. The people are watching us right now, I realize this, from Australia. It's their Sunday evening right now, so hello to you who are watching. But I regularly connect with priests from Australia, from South Africa, from Portugal, from Italy, from the UK. We're having an influence. They're looking to us. They're saying, what's Saint Benedict doing? And I feel that there's a responsibility. I do not just want to present to the world a monoculture when it comes to worship. I think we need to not just give into this divisive debate, but to say all are welcome. The church has arms open wide. Everybody can come in whatever style to worship the one true God. So I'm making a big ask today. I'm looking for organ donors. I mean, you can keep your pancreas or whatever, but we're looking for people to be financially generous in support of this organ. And there's all kinds of ways you can give. There's envelopes in the pews. Either you can give today or take it home with you and pray about it. You can give online. Go to stbenedict.ca/give, and there's a drop-down menu for our digital organ fund. You can tap a credit card in the foyer. You can send an e-transfer, whatever. There's all kinds of ways. But in choosing to give, it's not just about saying, okay, yeah, we got to pay for this instrument. It's about saying, I want to invest in this vision for music at Saint Benedict that is open to everyone, that is open to this diversity of people where everybody is welcome. If you love guitar and drums, great. We love you. You're welcome. If you're moved by organ and chant, we love you. You're welcome. All are welcome. There's diverse ways to worship the one true God. I want to end by showing you a little video. So let's dim the lights, and I think this video will capture for us this vision of music at our parish.
At Saint Benedict, we have several different music ministries, everything from contemporary, praise and worship, to hymns, everything in between, and then we have Gregorian chant and music on the organ. It's so cool that we have all these different kinds of music ministries operating here with different genres that help different people pray.
I was reading a wonderful book the other day by David Byrne of the Talking Heads, and he wrote a book called How Music Works. And one of the things that is said in there is that it's a mystery. Music is such a mystery. We love it. It can turn us upside down. We understand that we need it because music is still around. It's been around for thousands of years. And there's this idea that without a song, then the culture doesn't exist.
I don't think it's an accident that every single culture you come to has music. I think God's built it into our DNA to be able to hear Him in music.
One could say, well, can't we just come to Mass and just say it instead of singing? And I said, yeah, declaring our faith is really, really valuable on an intellectual level, and it can come from the heart. But there's something about music that helps the heart to engage with the realities that we're proclaiming with our lips.
I just think it's so wonderful to sing a melody that's been sung for 900 years. How many souls have sung that music, right? And the cool thing about it is it's greater than we are, right? When we're worshiping God, we also remember we're worshiping a king.
There's times in worship, it doesn't matter what the music is, what the style is, when it was written. There's times in worship when I get a glimpse of that glory that's waiting, that moment when we're all gathered and see Him.
Somebody said once, there's too much music in the world. And I think I agree in so much as It's not so much as there's too much, it's that it's everywhere, right? You can't get any space, you can't get any silence. You know, if you're paying a phone bill, you know, you got some piece of music in your ear that maybe you don't want to listen to. It's wonderful at this Mass that we're inviting people into a kind of stillness that they don't get out there normally, because a lot of people aren't going home and listening to chant recordings, right? Some might.
So I think it's a bit of a mystery of why we're all so different, wired differently, and how different types of music would impact us and help our hearts to fully enter. You know, a lot of it could just be psychological reasons that some of us like one kind of music over the other. But the point of all these styles of music isn't to do different things. They're all serving the same goal, and it's to help the people of God to worship Him.
Because worship changes us. There's a lot of things in our lives that pull us away or have pulled us away from who He meant us to be. And if we give our lives to Him, who we will be in the twinkling of an eye when we stand before Him and are remade. And worship gives us that chance to start to become who we were meant to be in the first place.